It's a gloomy Thursday here in Seoul. Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Lee Ji-yoon. Coming up on today's edition of Business Daily. So where is the Korea-US FTA headed? Questions are mounting over whether the deal will be terminated or revised, with members of the White House expressing different opinions about the issue. We'll sit down with an expert to talk about this. More Korean businesses are jumping on the bandwagon in the fast-growing virtual reality market, with VR technology being applied in areas ranging from art to medical treatment. These stories and more coming right up. President Moon Jae-in and Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe met in Russia to discuss sanctions on North Korea through a new UN Security Council resolution. Meeting on the sidelines of the Eastern Economic Forum in Vladivostok, the two leaders agreed that Pyongyang's latest provocation was a grave threat to regional peace and security. They agreed to impose tougher sanctions on the regime, which could include cutting off all oil supplies to the north. Moon and Abe said it was time to maximize pressure rather than engage in dialogue, with the regime continuing its nuclear and missile tests despite international condemnation. According to reports, the U.S. is not planning to withdraw from its free trade agreement with Korea, at least for the time being, but it's still pushing for amendments to the 5-year-old trade deal. Our Park Se-young has the latest.
Trade policy news source Inside U.S. Trade reported Wednesday that the White House has informed key lawmakers, including House Speaker Paul Ryan, that it will put aside its plan to withdraw from the free trade deal between South Korea and the U.S., quoting unnamed sources. The paper also reported that since the possibility of withdrawing from the free trade agreement with South Korea was brought up, several U.S. business groups, lawmakers, and national security experts have defended the South Korea-U.S. deal, pointing out its geopolitical and economic benefits to the U.S. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce, as well as a group of bipartisan congressional leaders, announced Tuesday that it opposes in the strongest terms a U.S. withdrawal from the deal, saying the FTA has boosted U.S. exports in aerospace, agriculture, and other industries. U.S. Trade Representative Robert Lighthizer also told reporters Tuesday, on the sidelines of NAFTA meetings with his Mexican and Canadian counterparts, that Washington is anticipating amendments to the FTA to address issues the U.S. has brought up since the deal began. Regarding such pressure from Washington to make changes to the FTA, Seoul's Trade Minister Bae Geun-kyu said earlier this week that the FTA has benefited both sides, calling for further research and analysis to assess the impact of the agreement on both countries. South Korea and the United States signed the free trade deal in June 2007, and the agreement entered into force in March 2012. Park Se-young, Business Daily.
Meanwhile, the reaction from high-ranking U.S. officials and American business leaders have been mixed. To give us more insight on what lies ahead for the 5-year-old trade pact, Professor Kim Se-won from Ewha Women's University joins us in the studio today. Hello, Professor.
Good to hear.
All right, so now just days after Trump reportedly called for a possible termination of the course FTA, Trump's point man on trade, Robert Lighthizer, as we just heard, said he hoped to see revisions to the deal rather than a complete withdrawal. So tell us more about this and also what led to such comments from Lighthizer.
We hear different voices on Korea-US FTA between U.S. President and U.S. Trade Representative. But real intention of U.S. government is amending FTA in a way of more beneficial to United States, not totally destroy it. So the FTA's cost and benefits are well known to U.S. government people, including Mr. Trump. Particularly, the benefits of FTA with Korea is highly related to Mr. Trump's political purpose, like increasing export of U.S. agricultural products and automobiles to Korea and having more direct investment from Korean corporations.
What could be some other reasons for the different responses from Trump and the U.S. Trade Representative?
It looks to me that Mr. Trump is trying to maximize the bargaining power before starting
actual
negotiation with Korea. If we interpret it in terms of the game theory, it goes like this. In case fighting, I threaten my friends by saying that my mom says, don't play with you forever. So that's going to be a great threat to my friend. So even though even though it looks that there are lots of disagreements in U.S. governments, it is a well-organized and well-orchestrated negotiation strategy.
Now, there have been different responses from the U.S. to the possible termination of the KORUS FTA. So how would such mixed reactions within the United States affect the Trump administration's decision-making process from here on out in regards to the KORUS FTA?
There are huge and strong oppositions on terminating FTA with Korea from all parts of the U.S. governments, Congress, and business. So it's going to be extremely difficult for Mr. Trump and his administration to terminate the FTA with Korea. For example, Mr. Trump's economic policy team is known as they're opposing terminating FTA with Korea. And also all important figures in Congress and Senate, like the chair of the Trading Committee in Senate, are officially objecting the terminating FTA with Korea. And lastly, U.S. Chamber of Commerce, the largest U.S. lobby group, they are clearly pointing out that terminating FTA with Korea never increase employment and GDP of the United States.
But there must be some who are standing by Mr. Trump's side.
Right. But some, the U.S. Trade Representative, Mr. Lighthizer himself, was a great supporter of the renegotiating FTA with Korea. But it is known that he doesn't want to terminate the FTA with Korea.
All right. Now, some are also saying that because of North Korea's latest nuclear test, discussions over the KORUS FTA, whether it's going to be a termination or renegotiation, those discussions are going to be pushed back to a later time. What are your thoughts on this?
That is a very highly possible scenario. Actually, one of the strongest voices on against terminating FTA with Korea is coming out from U.S. President military-related staffs, including Secretary of Defense. They believe that FTA with Korea is the strongest support to maintain military alliance with Korea. So under a given situation of North Korea's nuclear bomb test and missile test, they want to keep FTA with Korea as it is.
Now, what's the best way for the Korean government to respond to this situation right now? I mean, with various reports coming out day after day in regards to the KORUS FTA.
We just heard that White House decided to suspend all discussions on terminating FTA with Korea. And the best strategy, given this complicated situation, is going straightforward by highlighting the economic benefits of the United States part after starting FTA 5 years ago. Like Korea became the second largest beef importing country from United States, and we protect more property rights, which is good for United States governments. And above all, Korean corporations are contributing the employment of the United States by investing directly to United States 3 times larger than before, up to $13 billion as of last year.
All right. But didn't we do a lot of that during the joint committee meeting? I mean, don't you think the Korean side did a lot of that already?
Yes, we Korean part already emphasized the role of the Korean corporations and economy in improving U.S. Economy as a whole, but U.S. side is only seeing $28 billion of trade deficits from Korea.
So you're saying that we need to keep on highlighting the benefits that they're going to see if we don't terminate this deal.
Exactly.
All right. Thank you so much for your insight today.
Thank you very much.
Economic policy experts from around the world gathered here in Seoul for a 2-day conference to discuss the future of sustainable growth in Asia. The IMF also released a new report on how Korea can deal with the economic challenges posed by its rapidly aging population. Our Kim Ji-yeon reports.
An international conference on Asia's future economic policy direction was held in Seoul, jointly hosted by the Ministry of Strategy and Finance, the Bank of Korea, the International Monetary Fund, and the Peterson Institute for International Economics. The conference highlighted some of the biggest challenges currently faced by Asian countries, including demographic changes stemming from population aging, as pointed out by BOK Governor Lee Ju-yeol.
In response, We will have to reform our labor markets to ensure vigorous participation in economic activities by not only the aged, but by youth and women, while on the other hand, implementing social and education support policies to increase birth rate.
During the opening ceremony, IMF Managing Director Christian Lagarde also emphasized the importance of women's participation in the workforce in responding to the demographic changes in Asia.
Korea and Japan, for example, could further increase their focus on reforming secondary earner taxation and boosting childcare benefits and tax incentives for part-time work. The second earner is, by the way, always the woman, which is why by reforming that, you actually encourage women to contribute to the workforce.
Economists at the IMF's Asia-Pacific office also released a new report titled The New Mediocre in Asia, What Can Fiscal Policy Do?, which called for the restructuring of fiscal expenditures that are detrimental to pensions and medical insurance. It advised the Korean government, which recently submitted its budget proposal for next year, to raise the country's value-added tax rather than solely raise income taxes to boost fiscal soundness, with the expected workforce to shrink dramatically due to its rapidly aging population. Kim Ji-yeon, Business Daily.
The government's 2018 budget proposal has been welcomed in many circles for its massive bump in welfare spending. But it may come at a steep price, and considerable tax hikes may be inevitable as a result. Now, based on projections, Korea's welfare expenses could take up as much as 1/3 of its entire economy by the year 2060. Our Lee Joo-young breaks down the numbers for us.
Kicking the can down the road may not be a solid approach for the government when it comes to financing its welfare policies. A report by the Korea Economic Research Institute released on Wednesday shows the country's welfare expenses to GDP ratio is estimated to surpass nearly 20.5% by 2030, hovering above the predicted OECD average. By 2040, the ratio is estimated to exceed 27.5%, surpassing that of Denmark, Finland, Norway, and Sweden. And by 2060, it could snowball to around the 34% level, a major leap from that of 2015, which stood at 18.5%. The report said it took into account variables associated with Korea's rapidly aging society, including demographic trends and rises in income, and concluded that a general tax hike to over 35% may be inevitable in Korea by 2060. Last month, the Moon Jae-in administration proposed to allot more than a third of its $382 billion budget for 2018 to job creation and social welfare programs, a record on-year increase of 12.9%. The budget has sparked worries about whether a general tax hike is inevitable in the coming years, despite reassurances by the administration arguing the contrary, citing the restructuring of government expenditures and increases in corporate tax and tax on the super rich. Lee Joo-young, Business Daily.
Pre-orders have begun in Korea for Samsung Electronics' latest flagship smartphone. The company said its Galaxy Note 8 smartphone can now be pre-purchased from both online and offline retailers starting today until next Thursday. The factory price of Samsung's phablet has been set at about $970 for the 64GB model, its most expensive device yet. The official launch date for the domestic market has been set for September 21st. The Galaxy Note 8 features a 6.3-inch display, its signature S Pen stylus, and a dual camera that allows users to take both wide-angle and telephoto shots. The police here in Korea have arrested 4 individuals suspected of using stolen financial information that originated from North Korean hackers. Hundreds of thousands of financial records were leaked from ATMs earlier this year, with authorities saying that Pyongyang was likely the mastermind of that cyber attack. Our Yoo Jun-hee has the story.
3 South Koreans and 1 Chinese national were arrested on Wednesday for conducting a series of transactions using financial information stolen from ATMs. Few details have emerged regarding the suspects, aside from one of them being a 29-year-old man surnamed Cho and the other a 45-year-old male with the last name Ha. According to police, the suspects claim to have bought more than 230,000 financial records from a broker who had acquired them from a North Korean hacker. These records are suspected to have originated from a cyber attack on dozens of ATMs in subway stations and convenience stores back in March. The National Police Agency's Cyber Bureau says their investigation uncovered strong links between the attack and a suspected North Korean hacker. It also said the malware seen in the attack was identical to the one that breached South Korea's military service last year. Police say they are tracking down the broker who sold the information and other suspects involved in the scheme.
Currently, there are 3 suspects still at large in China. We've placed them on our wanted list and we will cooperate with international authorities to bring them into custody.
North Korean hackers have a long history of stealing financial data and selling them to criminals based mainly in Southeast Asia. In the past year, North Korea has been linked to the Bangladesh central bank heist, as well as the global WannaCry malware attack. Yoo Jun-hee, Business Daily.
The head of McDonald's Korea issued an apology for the first time on Thursday, 2 months after initial reports of possible food contamination in its burgers. CEO Cho Ju-yeon said she is deeply sorry about any worries that may have been caused by the fast food chain over the past few months. She added that the company will cooperate fully with government authorities until the cause of the illness is determined. Cho also announced new food safety procedures, which include inspection of third-party agencies, a food safety hotline, and better education for its employees. McDonald's Korea stopped selling its bulgogi burgers about a week ago after customers complained of illnesses after eating them at a McDonald's restaurant. The main issue being faced by Korea's semiconductor industry and other related sectors appear paradoxical. While most young people in the country are struggling to find jobs, these companies are struggling to find enough qualified workers. Our Elliot Kim has more.
Semiconductor orders are booming, already more than double the orders from all of last year. Unsurprisingly, personnel recruitment has seen a large increase. Despite this, companies are having a rough time filling the available positions.
If you need 100 people, then only 20 or 30 will be available. There aren't enough people that we want, and there just aren't enough people in general.
In the midst of the semiconductor boom, domestic companies are finding themselves dealing with an unprecedented labor shortage. The industry usually sees an annual shortage of around 3,000 jobs due to a lack of skilled workers. The global market for semiconductors is expected to be worth nearly $50 billion this year, a 37.5% jump compared to 2015. Despite this growth, the labor mismatch could have a negative impact on potential profits further down the road. Fears over the labor shortage have led to a government program that works with 4 universities to provide specialized training for jobs in the semiconductor industry. The program hopes to provide 100 additional qualified laborers to the work pool every year.
It seems like it will help me adapt quickly to a job, so I'm applying for it.
In terms of jobs, the industry is a lone bright spot in what is often seen as a lackluster job market overall.
It's an opportunity to provide young people with good jobs and a place to grow.
The government also has plans to secure next-generation technology and foster specialized talent through a $2.2 billion research and development project. Elliot Kim, Business Daily.
With Korea trying to stay ahead of the curve in the fourth industrial revolution, virtual reality has emerged as a promising future industry. The VR market is growing rapidly here, thanks to new improvements in both VR equipment as well as software. So let's take a look at the latest and what virtual reality has to offer.
This theme park in Incheon is filled with laughter and cries of joy. Some are frozen in excitement, while kids have a look of fascination in their eyes. This is a virtual reality theme park that promises a whole new dimension for visitors. Children are riding a boat that's rocking from side to side. When VR technology meets an HDM display, a bridge and an ocean unfold before their eyes. You can also ride roller coasters and speed through a racetrack.
I could see hot air balloons going up and boats plummeting down. It was something I've never seen before, so I felt fascinated and scared at the same time. But all in all, it was fun.
Our theme park just opened in early August, and in a short period of time, we've already had over 20,000 visitors. They can experience a diverse range of virtual reality platforms in one space, and we constantly update our content.
Only a few years ago, VR technology was something that could only be seen in science fiction movies. But now it has come a long way. VR HDM, a crucial display equipment, has vastly improved in performance, while prices have fallen to reasonable levels. Tech giants like Google, Samsung, and Sony are all jumping on the bandwagon to develop their own VR devices and software. Korea's VR industry is also growing rapidly. Worth $900 million last year, the virtual reality market is expected to surpass $5.1 billion in 2020.
VR technology is being applied and researched in many areas like theme parks, computer games, education, and simulation. Users are highly engaged, and the fact that there are seemingly no limits to what you can experience in a virtual setting, VR technology is a very promising future technology.
At an exhibition held in Seoul last week, on the current stages of the Fourth Industrial Revolution, one performance in particular grabbed people's attention. An artist is painting on the air wearing HDM equipment. Three-dimensional virtual reality is being used as a canvas. Lines, colors, and even the shape of the frame can be changed at the touch of a hand. VR art performances are drawing popularity among the audience with its strong presentation utilizing music and voice narration.
In 3D space, artworks can depict deeper and more highlighted expressions by artists compared to 2D. The audience love the variety of ways we can present art.
Yum Dong-gyun is the only VR graffiti artist in Korea. After being very active as a performance artist for the past 5 years, he decided to combine his art with VR technology last year.
간단히 설명을 드리자면 오른손은 그냥 붓을 들고 있는 손이라고 생각하시면 되고 왼손은 팔레트라고 생각하시면 돼요. 그래서
For Yum, VR technology is an art tool like brushes and spray paint. He says expanding the boundary of space from X, Y to Z is the biggest appeal of VR.
The biggest advantage of virtual reality is that there is no spatial restriction. I had difficulty expressing myself on a 2D canvas in the past, but now that I'm working with VR technology, there's no such difficulty.
But digital technology comes with the risk of data loss, and the complete artwork can only be viewed using HMD equipment.
I'm trying to develop new tools that can bring out great features of VR but also address its shortcomings. I also want to pave a new path in the overseas market.
While VR is primarily a source of entertainment for now, it is broadening its spectrum to protect human health and safety as well, most notably in rehabilitation treatment.
물고기가 손 바닥 안에 들어왔을 때 잡으시면 돼요. 손도 가야죠, 손도.
In this VR setting, patients are exercising their arms by catching fish swimming around them in a virtual ocean. Not only does it add fun to what is usually a dull rehab exercise, it can also stimulate and heal the brain's nerve cells.
This patient, for example, had difficulty in using his left arm. After being treated with VR, the patient's physical movement and memory functions have improved.
This hospital conducted VR rehabilitation for stroke patients who had trouble moving their arms. After applying the treatment to some 162 patients, it saw remarkable results.
Usually, stroke patients tend not to use the paralyzed muscle because it's uncomfortable, but VR treatment encourages them to use those muscles. If this technology can improve further, it could allow patients to be treated in the comfort of their own homes.
Currently, VR technology is being applied in various medical fields, including pre-surgical and educational anatomy training and surgical simulation.
VR technology has yet to provide a visual comfortable environment for users. It will take time to create a more solid infrastructure, so it is necessary that we continually update our VR content to keep up with the overall development in infrastructure.
VR technology has an infinite potential that can break the boundaries of time and space. Armed with a diverse range of contents, many hope that its success in the domestic market can translate overseas as well.
And that brings us to the end. But we'll be back tomorrow with more of the day's top business stories, so don't forget to tune in then. Thanks for watching, and see you soon.